for helping to share our message with your audiences throughout Vermont. My name is Ron McGarvey. I am the president of Vermont Interfaith Power and Light. It's a nonprofit organization whose mission is to support Vermont faith communities address the issue of climate change. We're joined by Vermont Interfaith Action and VPIR. And the people with me today, many of whom are from various faith communities throughout Vermont. We're getting our voices heard. We want our legislators, our governor, to know what we need and want. We want action on climate legislation, such as the global warming solution. We want policies that will address the impacts of climate change that all Vermonters are experiencing. And our grandchildren's grandchildren will also experience if we don't act now. Stewardship of creation is a mandate of all of our faiths. We have a moral responsibility to act and to act now. We have a number of speakers who have prepared statements. Before I introduce the first speaker, I want to introduce Donna Roberts.
Hi, Ron.
Donna Roberts, who is going to... Our first speaker this morning is the Right Reverend Thomas Ely. He is a figure known throughout Vermont for his climate activism and as the founder of Vermont Interfaith Power and Light. Tom?
Thank you, Ron. Ron said my name is Thomas Ely. I served as the bishop of the Episcopal Church for 18 years until my retirement in October of 2019, and I now live in Newfane, Vermont. I was also a founding member of Vermont Interfaith Power and Light, and this morning I also have the privilege of speaking on behalf of my successor, Bishop Shannon McVeigh Brown, who is not able to be here in person, but asked me to speak on her behalf. The Episcopal Church in Vermont, along with the wider Episcopal Church, has a long history of commitment to environmental stewardship and creation care. Creation care is a priority for all our congregations in Vermont, and we are committed to helping our churches develop sustainable practices that reduce their carbon footprint. Currently, more than 20 congregations, along with the diocese, are members of Vermont Interfaith Power and Light. Perhaps our most demonstrable commitment is the in Burlington. This array provides all the electrical power for that property and its many ministries, and remains, I believe, the largest solar array on any religious property in Vermont. In fact, creation care is so central to our faith as Episcopalians that it is one of our 3 church-wide priorities. Many of us across the Episcopal Church have taken the Creation Care Pledge, in which we have promised to place the care of God's creation at the heart of our common life, to safeguard the integrity of creation and to sustain the renewable life of the earth. That is why today we stand with other faith leaders and people of faith to urge action in the face of the climate crisis facing our world. Amen. Now, most preachers like to have a text for their reference when speaking, and while there are many passages from the Bible that we might have chosen for today, Bishop Shannon and I have chosen instead a quote from H688, the Global Warming Solutions Act, which is on the floor today. The text we take from that is this. A quote, "A climate emergency threatens our communities, state, and region, and poses a significant threat to human health, the safety, infrastructure, biodiversity, and our country." Quote. This threat we are facing is why we are here today. However, for people of faith, environmental issues are not just scientific, political, or economic, but they are also profoundly moral and spiritual. In the face of the current climate crisis, people of faith cannot remain silent and will not remain silent. It is our conviction that we are called by God to engage and caring for, as we say in the Episcopal Church Book of Common Prayer, this. So today, we urge people of faith throughout our state and others who care deeply about the environment to rise up. I just saw Hamilton the other day. Rise up and appeal to Governor Scott and the members of our state legislature to support full Climate Solutions Caucus platform, including the Global Warming Solutions Act, H688, instituting a 100% renewable energy standard for Vermont by 2030, modernizing our energy efficiency utilities, and participation in the Transportation and Climate Initiative. The crisis is real. The time for action is now. Please join us. Thank you.
Good morning again. I'm pleased to introduce now Reverend Jane Dwinell, retired Unitarian Universalist minister and Vice President of Vermont Interfaith Power and Light.
Along with being a retired minister, a wonderful place to be, I'm also a center hunter, and I currently live in Burlington in a net zero house. My environmental activism started when I was in high school with the very first Green Up Day, when I helped clean up the north branch of the Winooski River. And from then on, I have not stopped. Along with my fellow Unitarian Universalists, my faith calls me to love my neighbor as myself and to care for all of creation. Everything on this planet, along with every rock, grain of sand, and shovelful of soil, is interconnected. What I do, what you do, affects everyone and everything around the world. I don't need to give you climate facts, they're easily found. What I want to tell you is that I don't see very many insects anymore, and that the songbirds have diminished in number and variety, and that I'm concerned about the runoff damaging Lake Champlain, and that I'm frustrated that we don't have better public transportation and bike paths in our state. And that we are bold action needs to happen now, as in now. What's going to happen? We as religious leaders are doing what we can to sound the alarm, to call people to action. But more than our faith communities, we need you, the legislature, to move ahead quickly to pass the laws that will allow us to use our fossil fuels. 4 years ago, I spent 2 weeks on the island of Lesbos, Greece, as part of a medical team greeting the Syrian refugees as they arrived on those rocky shores after their harrowing 3-mile journey across the Aegean Sea in flimsy little life rafts and scarcely a decent life jacket among the 50 people crowded onto a boat meant for 20. Hundreds of people made the crossing every day, and this was in January and February. They had fled their homes without even a backpack or a plastic bag of belongings. They came with nothing, fleeing a war that was caused in large part by climate change. Would I dare make the would you? Climate refugees are already arriving in Vermont. We must be prepared to welcome them, as all faiths call us to welcome the stranger. As all faiths call us to abide by the golden rule. We are all in this together, but we need you, our leaders, to act now. Please support the Climate Solutions Caucus platform starting today. The Global Solutions Act, and ensure that the governor signs it. Amen. It's the least we can do for for all of creation.
So next we'll hear from Representative Sarah Copeland Hanzas, co-chair of the Climate Solutions Caucus.
So I want to thank all of these faith leaders standing here today for their timely arrival here at the State House to send out this very important message. I was raised in a Christian faith tradition that had me out doing Green Up Day as a 5-year-old or 6-year-old as well, working to be good stewards of the land around us. But my tradition also tells me that in times of difficulty, it's sometimes necessary to reflect, to find a calm center, and to have courage. And that's what we've been doing within the Climate Solutions Caucus. Where are we? Let's reflect. We are at a point where Vermont has fallen behind all of its neighboring states in terms of meeting our climate goals. We have a state filled with people who care about this clean environment, about this wonderful green state that we live in, but who are struggling to identify ways that we can move forward to tackle our emissions challenges. So we reflect, what can we do? And the best thing that I found to do in the face of monumental crisis is to reach out to my fellow Vermonters. Reach out to young people who come to the State House and say, we want a world we can live in. Reach out to mothers of young children who say, I worry about what this world is going to be like. It's and reach out to faith communities and ask for all of these groups of people to come together and to help amplify this message. And I'm so very grateful for all of you being here today. This is a really exciting day for us to have our first and most foundational priority coming to the floor of the House today, and to have you standing here with a list of all of the priorities that we've been working so hard on for the past many months is so very important. So what is the last thing that we need to do? We need to have courage. Right? All of us need to have the courage to ask and ask again and even demand that our leaders listen.
Yes.
It is the least that we can do.
Yes.
We came together as Vermonters very early in 2017 when President Trump pulled us out of the Paris Climate Accord, and we came together as Vermonters and we rallied behind the idea that nope, Vermont is in.
Yes.
Today is the day that we affirm that.
Amen.
By passing the Global Warming Solutions Act and continuing it on its way to the Senate and ultimately to the governor's desk. So I want to thank you all so much for being here, and it's really, it's very moving to have such power standing with us. Faith and determination, and we really need you. So thank you for being here.
Thank you.
So I think we've all noticed how today's youth are leading the way, from Greta Thunberg to UVM student Morgan Dreibelbis, who is a senior college in life science at Ascension Lutheran Church. Morgan.
Hi, my name is Morgan Rodovitz. I'm from Underhill, Vermont, and I'm currently a senior at UVM and an intern at the Natural Resources Board. In the spring, I'll be graduating, and while it sounds kind of like a mouthful, I do like to tell people what my focus is. First, because branches of environmental studies, and second, because I love it and I'd love to talk about it. I've actually always been interested in the environment, and particularly in environmental law and policy, since high school. Since my freshman year, I told anyone that asked that after I graduated, I would be doing environmental politics. I had no idea what that meant. I didn't know if it was real, and the only job I could think of was running the EPA. But my mind was made up that that's what I would be doing. And My passion for the environment has only grown throughout college and with what I've learned. For me, climate change and my impact on the environment influences how I think about everything. Every shirt I buy, every cup of coffee I drink, every trip I take. Almost unconsciously, when I consume something or I go somewhere, I create an ecological footprint in my head of what I'm doing. Where was it sourced? How was it made? How did it get here? I've actually been banned from doing it at the family dinner table. I would start lecturing my siblings on where their chicken came from or how their tomatoes are slowly killing the earth. But as I start to create a life of my own, my country dictates the choices I make today and how I'm planning my future. Especially now that I know my only option is in running EPA. Whether the environment is your life and your passion, or you're just trying to do your part, it's terrifying to hear what the future will be like and to see the complete lack of action by those that have the power to change it. For me as a young person, it makes me angry, frustrated, and scared to see that carelessness. It's a fistful of cash in exchange for a safe, healthy, and guaranteed future for myself, for your children, and for young people around the world. Something I think we all feel change is extremely overwhelming. It feels like those small individual actions do nothing, and when you take a step back and see the big picture, it feels minuscule. I decided early on that while I understand and appreciate the vital importance of those small actions, like not using straws or composting, those are just drops in the bucket. Law and policy, while it can be slow and not always what we want it to be, helps establish a vital standard by which we are all upheld. So not just those which way are participating, but eventually everyone does. Laws and policies can help create norms and behaviors that set a pace for future government and non-government action and change the way that we think over time.
Amen.
And the Global Warming Act is just that kind of bill. Vermont talks so often about being green, law and policy creation.
Yes.
The Global Warming Act creates deadlines, tangible goals, and calls for realistic methods such as market-based strategies to keep the economy going while achieving emissions reductions. This is the kind of action we need and we want. Young people now grow up learning about the climate crisis and the severity of the situation we are in. You can no longer pass the time with telling us you'll do something later, or creating lofty and meaningless aspirations that don't actually achieve anything. Setting real goals, passing bills that create real change, and promising the young people of your state that you will help protect their future and their home is Vermont's responsibility. As your young Vermonters step into the world and into our futures, we expect more from our governments, and we expect change. Amen.
Next, we'll hear from Webster. He's here on behalf of today's co-sponsor, Vermont Interfaith Action. Harris is a member of the Unitarian Church of Montpelier and leader of the church's Climate Action Team. Harris.
I'm glad to be a senior following a youngster. I speak as an individual who has valued religious and spiritual truth from being a minister's son to currently being an active member of the Unitarian Church of Montpelier, Vermont Interfaith Action, and Vermont Interfaith Power and Light. From early in my life, through a 40-year career as a studies teacher, and during my 20-plus years of retirement, I have believed these truths apply to society as well as to the individual. Especially recently, I've become deeply concerned, as many of us have, by the current existential climate emergency where humanity has played a major role in bringing about a threat to life itself on Mother Earth. Every person and every institution, especially faith institutions, need to adapt their message and practices. Mind, soul, and love future generations as ourselves. I am a strong supporter of all the current proposed climate legislation as first steps But ASAP, we need to realize the current crisis was essentially caused by the Industrial Revolution's excessive creation of pollution, largely in the developed nations. An important role to help us realize that truth. No major religion in the world worships goods or mammon. Jesus pleaded for society to take care of the poor, not obtain excessive riches. Many verbally praise those of us who lower our carbon footprint, but at the same time, even more people, uncritically, praise, even worship, and pass legislation. They realize the contradiction. Faith community should not only encourage all of us to become more spiritual and live a good moral life, but also, like the prophets of old, that the worship of mammon is the major competitor for worshiping religious and spiritual truths. Yes, today worship of production and consumption is the ultimate cause of our climate crisis, and a return to the worship of love for all living things, its ultimate cure.
Amen.
Thank you, Harris. And finally, we'll hear from Reverend Daniel Cooperrider, pastor of Weybridge Congregational Church. Daniel.
Greetings from just over the mountains in the Champlain Valley. I'm here to add my voice to the Climate Caucus as the pastor of the Weybridge Congregational Church, United Church of Christ, which is a brave little church perched on a hill right in the mountains, just upstream of where the Lemon Fair River joins the Otter Creek. From our little perch, we look out and we try to make sense of what's happening in our world. As a spiritual community shaped by the grace of God, shaped by the understanding that life is sheer, miraculous, unearned gift, we look out with eyes of gratitude and wonder, marveling at the beauty and goodness of it all. We give thanks each year for the first bluebird. We listen for God's word in the thawing river. We seek wisdom from the stars and the moon and the sky and the clouds. For as our scripture puts it, the heavens are telling the glory of God. The sky proclaims the work of God's hands. We look out and we listen, and as a community shaped also by the passion for justice and the compassion for suffering of Jesus, we know the heavens are still telling the glory of God. They're also telling about a rapidly changing, increasingly climate. Climate thrown out of whack by our human ways and patterns of consumption, pollution, exploitation of the earth's resources, the earth's gifts. We look out and hear about habitat and species loss, and the loss of biodiversity as a diminishment and an affront to the glory of God. So from our little perch, we look out, trying to make sense of what's happening, and then we look within. We try to take stock of what we can do, what little actions we can take from our own little spot within the global context of this climate. Last year, we went through the process in our denomination of becoming recognized as a creation justice church. We call it creation because we see the universe as a gift from God and as utterly infused with divine creativity in its unfolding and evolution. We call it justice because it's clear that climate change disproportionately affects the poorest and most marginalized among us, turning God's dream for a world of abundance into our human illusion of scarcity. We began this year 2020 by inviting church members to make their own creation justice pledges. These are everything from increasing number of meatless meals per week, imposing their own personal carbon tax, switching to electric cars, or participating in climate protests and strikes. If you were to join us on a Sunday morning before the opening hymn, before the scripture, before the sermon, the first thing you'd hear would be here today, what we call our creation care moment to connect our faith to our role as stewards prophetic quote from Greta Thunberg, maybe a report on the latest climate science, maybe a 6-part series on the best practices of composting. The last few years, we've tried to expand our work to the Addison County area. We formed a group we call the Interfaith Climate Action Network, ICAN for short. We tried to help offer townwide interfaith eco-justice, we've organized climate protests. Most recently, we've helped organize 7 area faith communities to participate together in a community solar project and to raise funds to donate solar panels to a local nonprofit. We look very about climate change events and building, but we choose to push on in hope. Hope not necessarily that things will go a certain way or turn out a certain way or that all will be perfect anytime soon. But hope in the sense that some things, like the earth and its flourishing, are good, true, and beautiful, and worth fighting for. I think ultimately, though, I'm standing here today because my faith has taught me that God is love, that we're made through love, that we're at our best when we live and act from that place of love. And when it comes to the earth, I believe we'll only save what we deeply and actively love. And so this climate crisis, what is this critical moment in our human journey on this earth but an opportunity and an urgency to fall more deeply in love with this love. The rivers, the clouds, all of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor. So on behalf of Vermont Interfaith Power and Light and our co-sponsors, Vermont Interfaith Action and VBERG, we want to thank you all for being here today, for taking urgent action for the climate crisis which all beings and our planet are facing, and for caring for creation of which we are all a part. And we do have time for a few questions, I was told, by our VBERG friends. So, Ben, I don't know if you want to sort of facilitate any questions?
I was just going to say, I think the media has left the building, or at least the room. So they got, I think, the information they need. Took them way out, and they thought it was great. So thank you all. So we're going to head up to the, before we move though, we're going to head up to the cafeteria. I'm meeting with Missy at noon up there, and that